Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan. And welcome back to Speak Up, the podcast that helps you become more confident and natural in English. Whether you're walking to work, making chai in the kitchen, or just relaxing after a long day, we're here to talk, laugh, and learn together. Today's episode is really special. We're going to talk about something most people don't even think about, but it can actually change how you learn English.
Hi everyone, I'm Priya, and I'm super excited you're here. So, what are we talking about? We're diving into silence. Yes, silence. Strange, right? We usually focus so much on speaking, but silence also plays a big role in learning. And guess what? Sometimes saying nothing can help you say more, clearly and confidently.
That's true, Priya. Most English learners think they have to talk all the time to improve. But what if staying quiet at the right time could actually help you become fluent faster? We're going to break that down today. Trust me, there's more power in silence than you think.
And we're not just giving ideas, we'll share real-life tips you can use today. You'll learn when to pause, how to listen better, and how silence can boost your grammar, vocabulary, and even confidence. So stay with us. We've got some surprising stuff coming up.
So we've talked about how silence isn't something we usually connect with learning English. But let's really dive into that. Let me ask you this. Can staying quiet actually make you a better English speaker? I know, it sounds odd at first. We're always told to practice speaking, speak more, speak often. But here's the surprising truth. Silence is not your enemy. It's actually a powerful part of English communication. When you're silent, you're not just doing nothing. You're thinking, listening, observing. You're learning naturally.
Exactly, Ryan. Silence gives your brain space to process the language. Think about it. When you're silent in a conversation, you're often paying more attention to the other person's words, tone, and flow. That's real learning. You start to understand how English is used in real situations. And when you listen with intention, you begin to absorb natural phrases and pronunciation. That's a huge step towards speaking English fluently. Not just memorizing words, but understanding how they live in real conversations.
Right, Priya. And you know what else? Silence helps you slow down. And that's important. Most learners try to talk fast, thinking it makes them sound fluent. But that's not always true. Fluent English isn't about speed, it's about clarity. And sometimes the best way to get that clarity is by pausing. Silence gives you a moment to find the right words, instead of rushing and feeling stuck. It's a smart tool, especially for people who are learning English naturally.
I've seen that too, especially with students who feel nervous. They think they have to fill every second with words, but that only adds pressure. I always say, silence is better than saying something you're not sure about. It gives you power. In fact, confident speakers, native or not, use silence all the time. It shows they're in control, and that's the mindset we want English learners to have. You don't have to talk nonstop to show fluency. Use silence like a pause button, not a stop sign.
Yeah. And it's interesting how silence also helps you read the room, right? You learn to watch body language, facial expressions, all the nonverbal stuff that's a huge part of English communication. It teaches you when to speak, when to wait, and how to connect. And when you do speak, your words land better. It's like music. If there's no pause, it's just noise. But with the right silence, it becomes powerful.
I love that, like music. And honestly, silence gives you the confidence to own your space. You're not rushing. You're not afraid of gaps. You're choosing your words, listening, and speaking with purpose. That's how to speak English fluently, not by talking more, but by communicating better. So next time you feel awkward about being quiet, don't. That quiet moment might be the exact thing that helps your English grow.
Now that we've seen how silence can actually help you grow, let's talk about something many learners deal with. Talking too much. Sounds strange, right? But it's true. A lot of English learners feel this huge pressure to keep speaking non-stop, especially in classes or group conversations. I've seen students who talk without taking a breath, not because they want to, but because they're afraid to stop. They think if they pause, people will judge them or they'll lose their turn. That's where a lot of the stress starts.
So true, Ryan, and I get it. When you're learning a new language, silence can feel scary. Like if you stop talking, people will think you don't know anything. But here's what happens. That fear of silence pushes you to say things just to fill the space. You start using a lot of filler words like, you know, like, or repeating phrases that don't really add meaning. This isn't your fault. It's just part of the struggle with language learning. But it can make you sound less confident than you really are.
Right. And that pressure to always speak can actually slow your progress. You're focused on making sound, not meaning. You're trying to perform, not communicate. One of the best English-speaking tips I give students is this. It's okay to pause. You don't have to prove anything. Fluency isn't about speed. It's about comfort and connection. When you're always rushing to talk, your brain doesn't get the time it needs to process new vocabulary or grammar. That leads to more mistakes and more frustration.
Exactly. And for so many learners, this creates anxiety. You start feeling like English is a race, and that's exhausting. You're constantly thinking, what should I say next? Instead of listening and responding naturally. That's a huge language learning struggle. And what's interesting is the fear isn't really about English. It's about silence. It's about that uncomfortable moment when no one's talking. But if you change your mindset and see silence as part of the conversation, not the end of it, you begin to relax.
Yeah, and once you relax, real learning starts. You begin to notice how native speakers take their time, pause mid-sentence, or think before they respond. Those small things teach you how to speak in a real-world way, not textbook English. And when you stop fearing those quiet moments, you also stop overthinking. That's how you start overcoming hesitation in English. You become more confident in what you're saying, not just that you're saying something.
I love that point, Ryan, because learning to slow down just a little can make a big difference. When you stop trying to talk constantly, you actually say more with less. Your words have weight. Your voice sounds calmer. You become the kind of speaker people want to listen to. So if you've been struggling with overtalking, just know it's okay to pause. It's okay to be quiet. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong.
Now that we've talked about how speaking too much can actually slow you down, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about listening. A lot of people don't realize this, but silence is what helps you become a better listener. And honestly, listening is one of the most underrated tools when it comes to learning English. We always focus on speaking, but the real magic? It starts when you listen, not just hearing words, but really paying attention. That's where silence comes in. It gives your brain a chance to catch up, to process tone, rhythm, and pronunciation.
Absolutely, Ryan. This is where active listening practice really makes a difference. When you're not in a rush to respond, you start noticing things you'd normally miss, like how someone stresses a certain word or how their tone changes in a question. These are small things, but they help a lot when you're trying to improve English listening. And here's the best part. Silence gives you the space to hear those details. You're not just preparing your next sentence. You're learning as you listen.
Exactly. One powerful English fluency tip I always share is this. Pause before you reply. It doesn't have to be long, just a short, silent moment. That pause lets your mind absorb what was just said. It helps you respond with more confidence and with better words. And over time, you'll find that your responses become smoother and more natural. You're not rushing or guessing. You're truly communicating. Silence helps build that flow.
And I think learners sometimes forget that listening is half of every conversation. You can't just speak well. You have to understand well too, and silence is what allows understanding to happen. When you're quiet, you can pick up on emotion, energy, and intention. That's a big part of communication. It's not just vocabulary, it's feeling. And when you become a better listener, your speaking improves too. They go hand in hand.
It's true. When you focus only on talking, you miss those emotional cues, the little things that make English sound alive. But if you give yourself space to listen, you start to get it. You hear how questions sound different from statements, how certain words get emphasized. That's not something a textbook can teach. That's something only listening can give you. And the better you get at it, the more natural your English becomes.
That's the beauty of it. You don't have to do more, you just have to notice more. And silence helps you notice. So if you've been struggling to understand native speakers or follow conversations, try this. Next time, take a silent pause before you speak. just for a second. Let the words sink in. Let your ears guide you. It's such a simple shift, but it works. That's the true power of silence when it comes to listening.
Now that we've seen how silence can sharpen your listening, let's go even deeper. Let's talk about how it helps you think in English. A lot of learners don't realize this, but silence actually gives your brain the space it needs to start forming English thoughts naturally. When you're constantly rushing to speak or translate, your mind doesn't get time to slow down and adjust. But in quiet moments, something powerful happens. Your brain starts working in English.
Exactly, Ryan. This is one of the most important habits if you want to develop fluency. If you're always translating from your native language, speaking becomes slow and stressful. But when you give yourself quiet time, even just a few minutes a day, your thoughts begin to shape directly in English. That's when real fluency starts, when English becomes your natural way of thinking, not something you have to force.
You're spot on. And here's something listeners can try, a 5-minute silence practice every day. Just sit somewhere quiet, close your eyes, and reflect on your day in English. Think about what you did, what you're planning, or how you feel in English words. It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to train your brain. This kind of English brain training rewires your thoughts slowly but surely.
I love that, Ryan. It's such a simple tip, but it works like magic over time. And the best part, no pressure. No one's watching, no one's judging. You're just building that mental habit. The more often you think in English, the easier it becomes to speak it later because your brain is already used to it. It becomes a natural part of your day, just like brushing your teeth or checking your phone.
And it's okay if it feels awkward at first. Silence can feel strange when we're used to noise and distractions. But when you sit in that quiet space with your thoughts, you'll start to notice new things, like what words come easily and where you get stuck. That's all part of the learning process. Thinking in English helps you catch those patterns and improve without even speaking out loud.
So true. The silence is like your personal classroom. No stress, no mistakes, just you and your English. And once this becomes a habit, you'll notice a big change. You'll respond faster in conversations. You'll search less for words and you'll feel more confident. That's how we develop fluency, not by forcing it, but by allowing space for it to grow. And silence gives you exactly that.
Now that we've explored how silence helps you think in English, let's look at something even more practical, how it actually reduces your mistakes and boosts your confidence. Have you ever said something quickly and then realized it didn't sound right? Maybe the grammar was off, or you picked the wrong word? That usually happens when we rush. We feel pressure to respond fast, especially in conversations, but silence can give us the pause we need to speak English clearly.
Absolutely, Ryan. I see this all the time. Students feel like if they don't speak quickly, people will think they're not fluent. But rushing often leads to more English grammar mistakes. They mix up tenses, skip little words, or use vocabulary that doesn't fit. When you take just a second or two to pause silently, your brain has time to organize your sentence, and your English comes out smoother and more accurate.
That's right. And here's something that really works. Instead of panicking when you're not sure what to say, replace the panic with a pause. That tiny moment of silence is powerful. It tells your brain, hey, take your time. And you'll be amazed. When you pause, the right words often come to you. It's a simple trick, but it's helped so many people build confidence in English speaking without adding pressure.
Exactly, and it's also about learning to be okay with silence. You don't have to fill every second with words. A pause can show that you're thinking, and that's actually a sign of intelligence and control. People respect that. And when you pause and speak English clearly, even if it's a little slower, your message is stronger. You sound more confident because you're not scrambling.
Yeah. And it really changes your experience in conversations. Imagine someone asks you a question, and instead of jumping in with a rushed reply, you pause, think, then answer clearly. That short silence not only helps your words make sense, it also gives you a mental boost. You feel in control. That's a big part of building real confidence in speaking English.
And I'll add one more thing. Listeners appreciate clarity. They'd rather hear a sentence that makes sense with a short pause than a rushed answer full of mistakes. So give yourself that moment. Use silence like a tool to think, correct, and speak with more purpose. The more you do it, the fewer grammar mistakes you'll make and the more confident you'll feel in any situation.
So far, we've talked about silence helping with mistakes and confidence. Now let's go one step further. Did you know that silence can actually be a powerful conversation tool? A lot of learners think if you pause during a conversation, it makes you look unsure. But actually, the opposite is true. A calm pause shows that you're confident, thoughtful, and in control. One of the best English conversation tips I ever heard was, "Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it work for you."
Yes, silence in a conversation isn't awkward when used right. It's smart. It gives both people space to think and respond more meaningfully. That's what makes effective communication so powerful. Instead of jumping in too quickly, try pausing after someone finishes speaking. That small moment shows you're listening, and it gives your response more weight. It's one of those English speaking habits that separates fluent speakers from nervous ones.
Let's show an example. Priya, I'll ask you something, and then give it a beat before you answer. Just naturally. Ready? Priya, what do you think is the biggest challenge for English learners today? Pauses intentionally. You see that? That pause makes it feel real. It gives the moment a little breath.
Exactly, and now I'll respond naturally. Pauses. I'd say the pressure to speak perfectly all the time. It can really hold people back. See, I didn't rush. I gave myself a second. That's what we're talking about. In everyday conversation, that little silence can help your answer sound more thoughtful and confident. It's subtle, but it matters so much for effective communication.
Yeah, and when you start doing this in English, you also notice how people listen more closely. They lean in because your words carry more meaning. Plus, you're giving yourself space to avoid mistakes. These small habits, like pausing and breathing, can change the way you connect with people in English. That's why they're top English conversation tips I always recommend.
And one last thing, when you use silence well, people feel heard. It's not just about your English, it's about the connection you're creating. Good communication isn't fast, it's thoughtful. So next time you're in a conversation, pause, think, and respond with purpose. That's how you build stronger English-speaking habits and, honestly, deeper relationships too.
Now that we've explored how silence works in conversations, let's dive into something a lot of learners overlook: the power of studying without talking. It might sound strange at first, but there's a whole method behind it. It's called the silent learning method. Think about this. When you're watching an English movie or listening to a podcast, you're still learning, even if you never say a word. This kind of English listening practice builds vocabulary, improves pronunciation, and trains your ear for natural speech patterns.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, it's something you can do every day, quietly. One of my favorite ways to study English without speaking is using something called shadowing. But here's the twist. Do it silently. Just move your lips while watching a video or show. It's like lip syncing, but you're training your mouth and brain at the same time. This quiet method actually builds muscle memory and helps your fluency without needing to talk out loud all the time.
Yeah, I've tried that too. It's a low-pressure way to get your pronunciation right. You can even watch your favorite scenes over and over and copy how the actors speak, with your lips only. And it's not just speaking. Writing works here too. One great silent habit: journaling. Grab a notebook and spend 5 minutes a day writing your thoughts in English. It's a powerful way to reflect silently while building grammar and vocabulary. All of this falls under the silent learning method.
Totally. And journaling also helps you think in English, which connects back to what we talked about earlier. You're building your English brain just without saying a word. And let's be honest, not everyone has someone to practice speaking with daily. That's why these silent techniques are so helpful. Whether it's English listening practice with a podcast or silent shadowing, it's all still active learning. It just looks different.
And it's flexible too. You can do it anywhere, on the bus, in your room, even during a break at work. That's the beauty of learning quietly. It removes the pressure, but still pushes your fluency forward. So if you've been feeling stuck because you don't have speaking partners, don't worry. You can still study English without speaking and make real progress. The key is being intentional with these quiet moments.
Exactly. Silent learning doesn't mean passive learning. It's focused, mindful, and it really works. So start small. Maybe shadow one short video a day or write a few sentences in your journal. These habits grow fast. Before you know it, your brain starts thinking in English more naturally. That's the power of the silent learning method. No talking required.
Finally, let's talk about something really important. When to use silence and when you might want to speak up instead. We've shared a lot about the power of silence today, but silence isn't always the best choice. For example, in a job interview or a meeting, a well-timed pause shows confidence. But too much silence can feel uncomfortable or even give the wrong impression. So knowing when to pause and when to speak is a key speaking strategy in English.
That's so true. And it's not just about silence itself. Your tone and body language play a huge role in how silence is understood. If you're quiet but look interested, making eye contact, nodding, people know you're engaged. But if you're silent and avoid eye contact, it might seem like you don't care or don't understand. That's why mastering English communication tips isn't just about words, it's about how you use all parts of communication together.
To help with this, here's a quick checklist we like to use. Smart silence. Pausing to think before you answer. Using silence to show respect and letting the other person speak. Awkward silence. Long pauses without purpose. Silence that makes people uncomfortable. Or silence that looks like you're ignoring the conversation. Knowing this difference is part of developing a strong English fluency mindset. It helps you build natural, confident conversations without feeling pressure to always fill the space.
Exactly. And remember, silence is a tool, not a rule. Use it to your advantage in interviews, public speaking, or even casual chats with friends, but also know when to jump in, ask questions, or share your thoughts. Balancing silence and speech makes your English sound more natural and your confidence grows. That's the heart of good English communication tips.
Well, Priya, I think we've covered a lot today. From how silence can help you listen better, think clearer, reduce mistakes, and even study quietly, to knowing when silence works and when it doesn't. We hope this episode helps you feel more comfortable using silence as part of your English speaking strategy.
Thank you so much for spending time with us on Speak Up. We're glad you joined this journey to improve your English with us. Keep practicing, be patient with yourself, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.
That's right. Thanks again, everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found this helpful. See you next time, and keep speaking up with silence and with words.